Hi, good morning. I wanted to talk to you about a new report in the Washington Post this morning. It relates to immigration. So, backdrop. Everyone knows that Mr. Abrego Garcia was admittedly mistakenly taken from the United States against a court order and was extracted from the United States and put in a prison in El Salvador, where he is today, even though the Supreme Court has ordered that the United States has to facilitate his return. And there is now ongoing discovery into what it has done to comply with that order and whether it is in contempt of that order and the order of the district judge in Maryland. That's the backdrop. And so, again, just remember there is somebody in jail now who is illegally there, was mistakenly taken there against a court order. He's entitled to due process according to a unanimous Supreme Court decision. The Supreme Court also ruled that the government is supposed to facilitate his return, and that has not happened. Just remarkable that the government isn't bringing him back. And the President of the United States says that he could do it, he just doesn't want to do it. And he's claiming because he's a member of MS-13, something that has not been proven in court. And if it was true that he was a member of MS-13, he could have his day in court. The government could put on the proof. It could be challenged, and the court would decide. By the way, the one case where the issue of whether a husband and wife were members of MS-13, when the government had to actually put up the proof, a court in Virginia and then another court in Texas said that the government completely failed to prove that either he or she was a member of MS-13. So that tells you why the government may not be wanting to do this, is that they actually can't prove it. Well, the Washington Post has a new article with reporting today about what's going on and talks about how there appears to be many other people who are in the same position as Mr. Abrego Garcia, who were removed from this country against a court order, and who are also in the midst of legal process in terms of allowing them to stay here under various programs. And so sort of the import of that article in the Washington Post is that Mr. Abrego Garcia is not alone. It's not just that everyone who has been removed to or extracted and taken to El Salvador, where they're in prison, was entitled to due process, which they did not get. And that's not me saying that, that's the Supreme Court. But there are people who also may not have been, who were taken there, and appears, against existing court orders. So just like Mr. Abrego Garcia. So he's not alone, and that tells you exactly why due process is so important, is that these people didn't have an opportunity to say, wait a second, there's a court order that says I can't be taken here, or two, I'm not in the group that you think I'm in, and I want a chance to prove it. Second, there's also the fact that the people who are in El Salvador, there is no master list of who's been taken. And so families are trying to figure out desperately about their loved ones. Where are they? And so the government is doing this all sort of anonymously. They are just the disappeared people who have been taken and put in a prison overseas, and not even letting people know who they all are. So just imagine if your family member was taken, there was no due process, no court proceeding, no ability to challenge the law or the facts, so no due process at all, and then you don't even know where they are. So it's the second thing that the Washington Post is reporting about, the fact that all of this is being done anonymously. And just think about the predicament that puts people in. Not only is there no due process, but you don't even know who is there and their situation. It makes it super hard, not just for the family to know, but also I'm a lawyer, for a lawyer to be able to sort of have access to their client, and to be able to say, this is somebody I represent, and this is where they are, and this is the proceeding that I think needs to happen for instance, habeas corpus. So that's the second thing. And the third is the Washington Post details the rush to get these people on planes and to move them out of the country. There is not a single good faith reason for that rush. If these people were a danger to our community, they could have been arrested here in the United States and then been given a hearing, but they would have been in custody. There was no reason to rush them out of the country. And once they're out of the country, the government's position is there's no way to get them back, and we're not giving them a hearing, and we wash our hands of everything. But the idea of rushing them to get them on planes and out of this country without any respect for the rule of law is the third thing that is notable about the Washington Post reporting. Final point from me. When these cases have hit the courts, we have rulings that say from the Supreme Court that all of these people were entitled to due process, and any new person is entitled to due process before they are extracted from this country. Second, you have the first court to deal with the merits of the Alien Enemies Act in Texas. A court has decided that the Alien Enemies Act just simply does not apply to the TDA, this gang that it's not at war with us. The judge says it's not an invasion of our country. And so legally, the effort of the administration to rely on the AEA, the Alien Enemies Act, a court has now struck that down and said, no, I disagree with that. And that applies to a whole class of plaintiffs in Texas. That's the first court to say, not only is there a due process problem, but legally the law that you're relying on does not work. You can go ahead and try and do this under the normal immigration statutes, but the normal immigration statutes have a lot of protections, and it requires due process and a proceeding. The Alien Enemies Act was relied on because the government thought they could just somehow extract them without due process. So Supreme Court has said no, due process was required. A Texas court has said the Alien Enemies Act legally does not apply. And then third, as I alluded to, when these people have finally been able to have a hearing, the only hearing I'm aware of where the issue is, are they a member of the TDA, this gang, or are they a member of MS-13, another gang? When there was a hearing about that, the district judge in Virginia, and then the case was sort of related case was brought in Texas. Both judges said that the facts were woefully deficient, that the government was relying on at times double or triple hearsay, and it was unreliable, and it did not meet the legal standard of clear and convincing evidence, or even the legal standard of a preponderance of the evidence. Those are two common legal standards in the law. The court said that this is woefully deficient. They wouldn't even rely on this in a civil case, let alone for extracting somebody from this country and putting them in jail. And so that's a long way of saying that the Trump administration has lost on the facts, they've lost on the law, they've lost on due process. And yet they continue to be relying on the Alien Enemies Act, and they continue to have these people in a foreign country without lifting a finger, it appears, to do anything to bring them back. So thanks for listening. I highly recommend, if you do have access to the Washington Post article, it's some very, very good reporting. I know lots of you may have issues with the Washington Post and its management. I do as well. But there still is some very, very good line reporting going on. And this morning's piece about this issue, which I have summarized for you, is an example of that. So take care, stay engaged, talk to you soon.